The Genesis narrative describes a cataclysm of total proportions, a world where the deep ruptures and the skies collapse in on themselves. The Hebrew text frames this catastrophe as a deliberate judicial response. The destruction is presented as the direct consequence of human behavior, governed by a specific legal logic. Genesis 6, verse 5 defines the crime by layering 5 dimensions of wickedness. It highlights its intensity as great, its inwardness as imagination of the heart, its inclusiveness in every thought, its exclusiveness as only evil, and its continuousness all the day. Because the author goes to such lengths to categorize the scale of this behavior, the preceding verses become essential to identifying the exact mechanism of evil that triggered the judgment. This search for a cause leads to Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4, a passage that has historically served as a focal point for biblical interpretation. 3 specific entities require precise definition to unlock the passage. First, the Bey Ha-Elohim, the sons of God. Second, the women they take as wives, the daughters of Ha-Adam, daughters of men. Finally, the offspring of these unions, the Nephilim, giants or mighty men of antiquity. The identification of these 3 groups determines the theological logic of the entire flood. To understand the cataclysm, these 3 terms must be tested against the constraints of Hebrew syntax and the historical context of the ancient world. One traditional model, the angelic hypothesis, posits that spiritual beings entered into physical relationships with human women to produce hybrid offspring. This view faces a significant textual hurdle in verse 3. When God pronounces judgment for this specific transgression, he states, "My spirit shall not always strive with man." As scholar William Henry Green noted, if angels were the violators, the judgment would reasonably fall on them. Green further argued that the concept of sexualized angelic beings is entirely absent from the broader biblical and Hebrew worldview. A second model, the Sethite view, suggests a conflict between human lineages, the godly line of Seth intermarrying with the ungodly line of Cain. This theory struggles with the term Ha-Adam. In verse 1, men, Ha-Adam, began to multiply, referring to humanity generally. When the sons of God see the daughters of Ha-Adam in the next verse, this view requires the exact same word to suddenly switch, referring exclusively to the line of Cain. Standard Hebrew narrative typically maintains the scope of a noun across successive verses. Forcing an identical term to change its definition so abruptly creates a link and its original historical setting. A third model looks to the socio-political structures of the ancient Near East, where Elohim is often translated in the plural, referring to the sons of the gods. In this context, the sons of the gods were human dynastic rulers who claimed divine status to legitimize their absolute power. Their crime is revealed by the Hebrew preposition min. Often translated as taking wives from among those chosen, it can also function as an explicative. These rulers took even as many as they chose. This points to unchecked mass polygamy. The resulting offspring, the Nephilim, formed a class of warriors enforcing rule through violence. This interpretation provides a direct political antecedent for Genesis 6:13, where God declares the earth is filled with violence through human actions. Under this model, the catalyst for the flood is a regime of human tyranny, where rulers exploited their subjects and established a cycle of unchecked aggression. Connecting the Genesis account to the reality of ancient city-states invites a comparison with other regional records of a great deluge. The Gilgamesh and Atrahasis epics have led many to conclude that the biblical story is a modified version of these Mesopotamian traditions. These texts share a clear structural framework. Both follow an 8-point sequence: a divine warning, the building of a ship, the preservation of life, and the release of birds to find dry land. While this structural similarity points to a shared tradition, the specific physical details of the biblical account indicate a significant shift in perspective. These differences are most apparent in the engineering of the ships described in each account. Utnapishtim's Babylonian vessel is an exact cube, 120 cubits on every side, a geometric ideal but lacking stability for actual navigation. Genesis provides different dimensions, 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, creating a rectangular prism 450 feet in length. These measurements result in a displacement of 43,000 tons. Notably, the length-to-width ratio provided in the text aligns with the proportions used in modern shipbuilding to ensure stability in heavy seas. The biblical author rejects the impossible geometry of the Babylonian epics in favor of a hydrodynamically viable craft. This attention to technical detail, combined with a focus on the politics of human tyranny, indicates a text seeking to ground the narrative in the realities of the physical world.